spaghetti place in Sherman did.
It's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call to order at this time a meeting of the Durant City Council. If you would please stand and join me in an invocation and a salute to our flag. Let's pray together. Our God, our Father in heaven, we recognize you as the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. Lord, we come before you today in prayer, asking that you would continue to bless this city. We're so thankful for the gifts you've given us. We're so thankful for the blessings that you've showered on each and every person here, on our community, and on all the people that visit here. Lord, we just pray that you would continue to watch after us, go with us through this meeting, guide us with these decisions that are in front of us. And Lord, thank you so much for Jesus, who's our Savior and who died for us. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. If you would please face the flag and join me in a salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all, and please have a seat. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Scheer.
Here.
Councilmember Fuller is absent. Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Here.
Mayor Tucker.
Here. We do have a quorum, so we'll begin. First order of business tonight is the consent agenda items. There are many. There are items A through J. And at this time, we will consider a motion to remove any of those for further consideration, or a motion to approve all of the consent items together.
Make a motion to remove item C.
We have a motion and a second to remove item 1C from the consent agenda. Any other items? With that motion and second, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Councilmember Scheer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Now, do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent items, or are there other consent items to remove for additional consideration?
Motion to approve the rest of the consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve all the consent items except for C. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Councilmember Scheer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Next is item number 2, consider items removed from the consent agenda. That will be item 1C, consider approval of appointments of Dan, Craig, and Al Olson to serve additional 3-year term as an airport advisory board member. Comments or questions?
At the last airport advisory board meeting this past Wednesday, Mr. Olson requested to be removed from the board.
So Mr. Olson no longer wants to be considered for approval as an advisory board member.
Yes.
Understood. So can we amend this item to cover Mr. Craig, or does this have to come back again for the next term?
You could amend that. That's a mayoral appointment, so you as the mayor can amend that and the council can approve that.
If there are no other further comments or discussion, then I would make a motion that we approve Dan Craig to serve an additional 3-year term as an airport advisory board member.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Dan Craig to the airport advisory board. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Councilmember Scheer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Next is item 3, information items. This will be Ann Chin, who will bring us updates to the financial reports in addition to the June sales tax report. Would you please pull that microphone down closer to? Thank you. Great.
Is that okay? Yeah. Is that better?
May not be turned on.
Hello, hello? Does that work?
We'll be extra quiet while you're talking. How about that?
Okay. So that's good, right? Okay. I have to point out that this is the June's statement, and this is kind of the end of the fiscal year of the statement. And then the first one is the general fund, and you can see the revenue that I highlight the sales tax and use tax, that percentage of budget year-to-date percentage. We budget is really conservative, so the, sales tax is, over the budget 109.84, and the use tax is 145.91. And the, overall, the total revenue is over budget by 5.88, but this is not including our, fund balance. And if the fund balance is including the revenue is under budget by 9.6. And the expenditure are 13% under budget. And the general fund, the end of this fiscal year was net gain of the 691,000. But I want to bring up one point, this year is the first year that we did not transfer money from the general fund to the airport authority to subsidize their operating expense. And this is the first time that we didn't do that.
We also significantly reduced the amount that we transferred from the utilities authority to the general fund as well, as I recall.
Mhm, yeah. And I hope that in the future, the airport authority can support themselves. Of course, right now, they have one debt payment for the terminal still. DCUA is the one who paid it for them. And the next one is capital improvement. This is also I keep saying, this is for the information that you will know what kind of project we are still going on. And the third page is the DCUA, Utility Authority. And the Utility Authority, compared to the budget, is really slightly down a little bit, not reach our budget, is under the 1.41% under. And without transfer, revenue will be under budget 0.88. So it's pretty close, but still under our budget for the revenue. But the expenditure also under budget by 18%. Yeah, and one of the things is that when I budgeted, I put some reserve for the future landfill close and post-closure expense. So this is one of the reasons. And the DCUA fund ended the fiscal year with a net gain of 2.5. But this 2.5 million is, we had to take the $900,000 aside for the landfill close and post-closure expense. That is the one that I reserved it for the future, that when we need to close the landfill, that cost. That is also the one that Oklahoma, the DEQ, yeah,
Right.
DEQ give us this estimate amount.
Right.
Yeah, and then is our sales tax. This is the July sales tax. This is the breakdown, and then I have to emphasize again, the first top two is for us to use, and the 1% is for the capital improvement, and the 2 cents is for our general funds expense, for our general fund expense to use. And the rest of this 4 that we just receiving the money and then we transfer out right away. So we will not use this money. This is sales tax, but it's not for us to use. And the next page is a 10-year history for the 1% sales tax. This is for the July, and you can see the July compared to prior years, the same month is negative 3.03 lower. But we are really fortunate that during the COVID-19 period of time, this past 2 years that we got really good sales tax revenue, not like some other cities that sometimes their revenue go down, but ours is not like this. And so if you compare 21 to 22, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of back to normal now. So we were close to monitor it, but when we do the budget, it's really conservative. So I think so far I have confidence we will be fine. So that is for the July's report.
Any comments or questions for Ann on the report? Good report. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next is item 4, administration. The first item, item A, is to consider approval of a resolution supporting continued participation in the Main Street programs, which will be resolution 24-13.
And I do recommend continuing support of the Main Street program. I think it's a really great program to have. And it's not only, I mean, it's state and national. So the city gives $30,000 a year, $7,500 a quarter to the Main Street program. Questions?
And you got a new director.
We do have a new director, yes. I think she's doing really well. Stephanie Schweiker.
Schweiker.
Schweiker, yes.
Questions or comments from council? Do I hear a motion?
I make the motion, we approve item 4A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 4A to continue to support and participation in Main Street programs. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker,
Yes, next is item 4B, consider approval of an ordinance enacting and adopting the supplement to the Code of Ordinances for the City of Durant, Oklahoma, and declaring an emergency, which will be 24-04. And Pam, we'll leave this to you to explain.
Well, this is our code supplement. Every time, when you pass ordinances, they have to be entered into the code book, which is supplements to change the code. So this will be for American Legal Publishing, the company that we use to update the code book.
And I understand the codes online are already updated, but this would
Yes.
just be in the books that
The
people
books.
have or use, the physical books.
Correct.
Okay, comments or questions about that? No? I move for approval then of item 4B.
Second.
That would be for sections 1 and 2. For sections 1 and 2, section 3 is the emergency, and we'll have to have a separate vote.
Okay. Just for the enacting and adopting of the supplement. That's my motion.
Second.
And a second, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker,
Yes, and get used to that. So now I make a motion that we declare an emergency in the adoption of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to declare an emergency in the adoption. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker,
Yes. Next is item 4C. Consider approval of an ordinance amending the Durant Code of Ordinances, Title 5, Chapter 53 by amending references to the Code of Federal Regulations and the declaration of emergency that will accompany that. Mr. Hightower.
This is just to clear up a section in that code.
It was fun to read.
It was. Instead of being from 405, section 405 to section 421, it's going to be section 403 to 421.
Didn't really change anything as far as the percentages or the
Right,
quantities or the testing methodology or the
No.
timing or anything else. We're just changing the labels, basically,
Basically, that's what.
on this ordinance.
Mayor, I'll tell you that it really isn't a substantive change unless the federal statute is changed or
Right,
the
then we
federal
have
law is
to-
changed. This makes sure we have all of that included,
Wanna
so
be
if
in
they
line.
do modify it, we get it. And it's automatically included. So for
Gotcha.
now, it's not really a substantive change, but it could be if the federal law gets changed at some
Right.
point.
Right. Any questions or comments on this? I learned about FOG. That was a new one for me when it comes to wastewater. Yeah. No
And
comments?
this
no
likewise
questions?
would be a motion for section 1, and then section 2 is the emergency would be a
Okay.
separate vote.
All right, then I'll make a motion under 4C that we approve Section 1 to consider the approval of the ordinance to amend the Durant Code of Ordinances.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Section 1 basically of item 4C. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes, under item 4C, Section 2, I make a motion that we declare an emergency in the adoption of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the emergency declaration on item 4C. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Next is item 4D, consider approval of an agreement between the City of Durant and Theorem LLC for architectural and engineering services for a new animal shelter in the amount of $96,250, which is contract C24-45. Contract was in engineer language, as I've already spoken with Mr. Knott about. I'm not an engineer, but I'm beginning to understand. Are there questions or comments on the contract?
Yes, I don't see how we can design a facility without having a location selected for it first.
We have a possible location, it just hasn't been before this board yet, but we have been looking at several different properties that the city owns. Right now, we think probably the best piece of property that we have is at the multi-sports complex. There's a 10-acre tract. Of course, we don't need 10 acres for this, but staff has been discussing it, and we think that's probably the best place for it. Of course, that will come before this board also.
Well, still, most time you have the location selected before you pay somebody to design a building for you, in my experience.
Well, and I don't know, we can go either way with it, I guess, but this has been one of the biggest concerns with visits that I have had with the public since I've been here is to get a new animal shelter. So,
I think our primary concern was not to go and spend more money buying land when we had a land available that was suitable for this
absolutely.
purpose, and we have multiple sites. that
There
will
have been
accommodate
several
this.
locations discussed over the years, and I do agree that we desperately need a new one. But in my opinion, this is putting the cart before the horse.
So are there challenges with the site that we're considering out by the multi-sports complex from an engineering or architectural perspective? And I'll call on you, Shane, out of the crowd. You're probably familiar with that site from the perspective of a construction.
Thank you. So we haven't done any investigations on the site in terms of survey, topography, utilities, any of that yet, other than we know it's a 10-acre tract on the northeast side of the sports complex. It seems to be a attractive site just from driving by, but we haven't performed any investigations on it yet and don't anticipate there being any real issues just knowing the area. But I don't think, I can speak a little bit, I don't think the site has been selected 100%. I know there's been some initial meetings between staff and the city manager on some possibilities, but nothing's been selected yet other than narrowing down a few places in that area.
So if you read the engineering contract between the city and your firm, Shane, will the price change considerably between one site versus another in terms of the contract that we have under consideration tonight?
Well, I think that depends on where we go with the project and what the
Say the scope
what
stays the
budget-
same.
What the budget for it is. Some of the sites that we had looked at before were even as small as an acre or a little less than an acre.
Right.
That would still fit the size facility that we've been talking about. So the fact that we're looking at this 10-acre tract that the city already owns, I think that's way more than you're going to need for this facility, but gives you options.
What is your normal fee for design? Isn't that usually a percentage of the,
Yeah, it's typically.
Cost for the project?
So what you've got there now, you're looking at about a 10% fee for.
That's what I thought.
Basic architecture, engineering
Mhm.
services. And this will be a fairly simple facility, in my opinion. So I don't anticipate any.
so how do we arrive at a $920,000 cost for the project?
Looking at the size of the facility that was needed. So one of the sites that I think is even mentioned in there was on the west side of 78 at one point. So we included in those fees you're looking at are your survey, topography, geotechnical engineering, civil engineering, utilities, grading, drainage, your architecture, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, anything that has to do with the site development. So
And we
I'd love to tell you all that was gonna be in my pocket, but that's just not the way it works.
Now, you did some, right? Previously, you did contract for a shelter previously for the city a couple years ago.
There was a project 4 or 5 years ago with the city where the city had purchased or inherited a steel building, and we tried to fit an animal shelter inside that steel building. That was definitely a cart before the horse situation on that.
Mm-hmm.
We did end up doing construction drawings on that, went to the bidding process. It was way more than what the city had at the time for construction budget, so the project just got tabled.
And I do believe what the police purchased for a metal building was laying on the ground and was stolen.
I understand that pieces of that building were stolen as well.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's great.
How long do you anticipate this site selection process taking?
Just from my standpoint, from the time we get an agreement together with the city, we should be able to nail down a site within the next 30 days.
It won't be long. Yeah,
Okay.
It should be.
I was just checking out. I think we also looked at shelters in other communities that are comparable to what we need, and they're a lot more pricey than we had anticipated.
Yeah.
They had, I can remember, like it was Idabel or somewhere like that. They did a shelter. I mean, it was much more expensive than we had anticipated. So we may have some funding challenges as well coming up.
Yes, that's true. That was Broken Bow, and they did go out for bids, and it came in at 1.8 million for theirs. So they have gone back to the drawing board and trying to cut the cost on it, and they're going to rebid this fall. So I don't know. I anticipate this one coming in at like 1.2, 1.3.
I would say so as well. So, and hopefully design it in a way that it could be expanded upon.
Right.
Or cut a section off if you needed to.
Well.
For budget purposes. But that's the last thing you want to start trying to do before you can start is cut.
So the council's perspective, the location would make it better.
Yeah, the location, and good Lord, 1.2 million, it's a lot of money.
We have some of that, I believe, correct?
We do.
About half of that.
Half of that. And then we'll have to figure out a way to fundraise for the rest of it or find money for that.
Some of that come from the sale of the old senior center.
Yes.
And then we
the
budgeted capital
We
dollars
budgeted
for
Yeah.
part of it
Yeah.
too, 350 as I recall. So
It's definitely dated. I mean,
Yep.
way past due, but,
I'm not opposed to tabling this to the next meeting, if that'll get us a better product.
I just feel that
Nail down a location.
we need a location before, I mean,
So tonight, table it? What's your ask?
Yeah, tabling would be fine.
I don't
Okay.
think the location, though, is going to change the scope.
That was my perspective as well, but if that helps to get it across the finish line, then I'm definitely on board for making that happen. So we'll take no action on item 4D. Next is item 4E, consider approval of an ordinance amending the Durant Code of Ordinances for Title 9, Chapter 96 by requiring dogs and cats to be sterilized, providing exceptions, establishing a permit, providing a penalty, and declaring an emergency, which will be 24-07.
Yeah, we won't need the emergency because it doesn't go into effect until November, December.
I don't remember that detail.
I believe that date's November the 1st.
Yeah.
November.
So you won't need the emergency, just go
Are you saying every dog and cat in the city is supposed to be neutered, sterilized, spayed?
Yes. And,
Do you think that's gonna happen?
I think that it is not gonna be 100% compliance. I think that there will always be, I think there's always gonna be somebody that's gonna be out of compliance, and that's where our animal control officers will need to step up and make sure that everyone's in compliance.
Are you gonna go door to door, knocking on doors, asking people, do you have a pet? Has it been neutered? Has it been spayed?
I don't think that's the objective of this ordinance. So.
What is the objective of it?
Responsible pet ownership, our stray population is continuing to grow. It's an effort to try to curb irresponsible pet ownership. People get the pets and then just let them roam free, and they multiply and just create a big problem.
If they're irresponsible, do you think they're gonna follow this ordinance?
Probably not. I mean, it's going to be their option to either comply or be cited for it.
Was this ordinance patterned after another city's ordinance or after a recommendation by a health care authority of some type?
I can answer that question. There are many cities in Oklahoma that have similar or almost word for word ordinances just like this. And the short answer is there's not going to be 100% compliance, but for those animals that are roaming loose, the owner essentially has to comply. If they're being irresponsible and letting their animal run loose, they've got to comply to get their animal back. We wouldn't need an animal shelter as big as we
Right.
are building if everybody complied
Right.
and was responsible.
Can you answer me how many people's been cited for like animal at large in like say the last year?
Yeah, I would have to. I can speculate. I don't have that exact number with you, but I would say that probably there's 10 to 15 a month.
Okay.
that we cited.
Councilman, I can tell you, I don't know how many there are. I serve also as a prosecutor for the municipal court. So for those that are cited and just go pay their ticket, I usually don't see them because I only appear on the trial docket. But almost every single month we have somebody that appears on the trial docket because they've received animal at large tickets. So I know that is happening.
How much is the fine?
So on the first offense, the way the ordinance reads is that a fine will be levied with a requirement to bring the animal into compliance with all vaccination and sterilization requirements within 10 days. I'm not real sure what that fine will be. I think it's $300.
Well, if we're already seeing citations and people having to pay citation for stuff, I don't really see a problem with the system we've got now. If he's saying it's monthly, we're having them every month, I really don't see, putting another regulation on people if we're having them, if it's the current, so often as they're saying. If it's already kind of working.
Well, it's sort of working, but not. I mean, the city has all kinds of ordinances that people don't adhere to. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't need a police department.
Right.
But I have had several cats people, I'll say dog people, come to me and really they want it, we need this ordinance. They want this ordinance because it will help with the strays and with the whole pet population. So you can see it on both sides, I guess, but we
Right.
do have a faction that does want this ordinance and came to us to ask for that. It's not that everyone doesn't want it, so.
What are the exceptions?
So the exceptions are like if a veterinarian believes that would be medically harmful to the animal, they can write a letter and exempt that animal from being spayed or neutered. Another one is if they get the intact permit, and that's basically a permit that pet owners can get that as long as they're in compliance with the ordinance, they don't have to have their animals spayed or neutered.
I don't understand that. Have to clarify that
Okay, so-
for me a little bit.
And if you don't mind, I can read the ordinance part that applies to that question.
Okay.
So it says it is unlawful for any person who owns, possesses, keeps, or harbors within the city any unspayed or unneutered dog or cat over the age of 6 months, for which the exceptions in this enumerated subsections do not apply. Fail to obtain an intact permit in his or her name. The city clerk, animal control officer, or other duly authorized agents for the city shall issue intact permits upon payment of a fee and approval of an application made for such purpose. The application shall state the name, address, and telephone number of the owner, and the name, breed, color, age, and sex of the dog or cat for which the intact permit is obtained, and such other information as the city clerk or animal control officer may require. Neither the city clerk, the animal control officer, nor any other agent of the city shall issue an intact permit until the owner presents a certificate showing the dog or cat has a current rabies vaccination at the time the application is made. So what it does, it gives us kind of a place file for that animal. If we come across it, it gives us a place to start to find out who owns that particular animal. It ensures that the animal is updated on its rabies shots, rabies vaccine, and would greatly assist the animal control officers if they ever came across this dog wandering the streets.
Is this more for like breeding? I feel like this is a permit that would say, hey, you can breed the dog, or the cat. Is that the idea behind this? Because otherwise it seems kind of odd. Right, this is almost like a breeder permit. It's like, hey, you can have a dog or cat that's not neutered for whatever reason or spayed, and then you can breed them, right? That's kind of the thought behind this, I would assume. Right? Maybe.
Does it say anything about breeding?
I was
having a
just
kennel?
wondering though, I mean,
Or do
right,
you
that
have
would
to,
make
or do you have
sense,
to
right?
move out of the city to have a dog or a cat that you want to breed.
I think it would be a whole separate
Whole separate.
ordinance
Okay.
for breeding.
I was wondering, cause that's why I was asking, it's a little odd. Like, why would you have a permit to have this cat or dog like this if you're not gonna breed it? Just weird. I mean, but I don't know, maybe it's not my wheelhouse, so I'm not sure.
From a enforcement standard, I think that's exactly, I mean, the only reason you wouldn't get your pet spayed or neutered other than a medical reason is because
Breeding animal.
you want it to breed. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons. You don't have to provide a reason to apply for the permit. But the permit then gives it requires a tag, and then, animal control then, if they see that dog, they don't cite the owner for failure to comply with this ordinance because he or she has a permit for their pet. But
What's the regulations for breeding in the city limits? Is there any ordinance on that?
there's a limit on how many dogs you can keep. Yes, I don't know what they are on the top of my head, but yes, there's a limit on how many dogs you can keep.
4. It's 4.
Are there other ways to address the problem of animals not being controlled by their owners? Because I think that's the challenge that we're trying to meet.
Mayor, what I can tell you is from an enforcement standard, what there's more than one issue, and right now our current ordinance just prohibits dogs from running at large. And so that's a safety issue, it's a health health issue, all kinds of things that are incorporated within this. This is specifically designated whether the animals are running loose or not, to keep the overpopulation. It's not just when the animals are loose.
Right.
People are having animals, they may have them 100% contained, but they're not spaying and neutering. So then when their animals breed and have puppies, they dump them down the street or take them to the animal shelter or whatever, and we end up with a bunch of unwanted dogs at the shelter or running down by the railroad tracks or wherever else they choose to dump them. So it's not just loose dogs. This doesn't just apply to dogs that are running loose. Now, maybe most of the enforcement will be for dogs that are running loose, because unless they're overbreeding or whatever, I don't know that law enforcement's going to go knocking on doors, but this doesn't just address loose dogs. That's my understanding anyway.
Any other questions or comments? Thoughts on this one?
You might ought to address, pass this on two-legged critters too.
So do I hear a motion on this one, or is there an amendment we would ask for?
I mean, I'd say we at least vote on it. And take the easy way out and table it if you want, but I think we should vote on it and see. Always bring it back later.
Okay, do I hear a motion then?
Motion to approve 4E.
We have a motion to approve item 4E. Do we have a second?
That's section 1 only.
Section 1 only.
I think we decided we didn't need a. Not hearing a second, then this motion will received no action tonight. We'll move on to item 4F, consider approval of a $300 deposit required towards sterilization and vaccination services in accordance with Section 95.051 penalties of the Durant Code of Ordinances, which I think is directly part of this, so inapplicable at this point. So that item will also be tabled or taken no action tonight. Next is item 4G, consideration and approval for a replat and rezone request for 3424 Sunnyside Road.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This went, it's a request to replat and rezone from A1 to R1, which abuts to the north. He is looking to rezone the entire property to R1, then replat into 3 smaller properties, counting his current property for his 3 children. I don't think it, there was some questions over the, I think there's a gas line that runs through the side of the property, but.
South side.
Yeah, all that's already been, okayed from the company that has that line running through there, just as long as nobody builds on it, they don't have an issue or see any problem with anything there, so.
And the distance between the lot 1 and north boundary line, that's wide enough to accommodate access, egress
Yes, sir.
for the property. This one seems really straightforward. Planning and zoning recommended approval as long as it's R1. Any comments or questions on this property?
I do have a question. On that lot 4, what is the frontage on Sunny Meadows?
It says 25.85 feet, 24.85 feet, I'm sorry.
That doesn't meet the minimum frontage requirement.
That was my question.
I don't, mine is, we have a big, there we go.
And that might be a question for Mr. Knight. Was that addressed with planning and zoning?
There are 2 frontages that face. Yeah, there's another entrance to the. 2 frontages that face the west.
Over here off the sunny side, there's another entrance.
Over the easement?
Correct.
Yeah. Easement? Okay.
Yeah. And then the entire frontage on the south is more than adequate, because that's also a road. This is on a corner intersection.
I see. Okay. No issues then.
So access and egress is good. It is R1. It joins R1. Any other questions or comments on this property?
What did the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend?
It says here that approval if all is being rezoned to R1, which it will be. That's exactly what it says. And to the north is R1. Any other questions or comments on this property? Yeah, the picture does a great job there if you look at that, describing what we're talking about. So the whole south boundary line is pretty much egress and ingress if the owner chooses. Plus that on the northwest corner as well, 24.85 feet. Not hearing any more comments, I'll make a motion that we approve item 4F for the 4G, I'm sorry, for the property at 3424 Sunnyside Road.
Second.
Hang on, Mr. Mayor. That is, there is an ordinance that was passed out that goes with that, with this agenda item. So it would be the ordinance that you need to adopt, ordinance O 2024-08, Section 1.
Shall I read this?
I don't think it's necessary. It just does exactly what was described in the agenda item. It is the ordinance that changes the zoning pursuant to the agenda item. It
Section
just-
1 of this, I'll skip over the legal description because it's about 7 lines long, but Section 1 is that the zoning, this is the ordinance that we would consider passing, that the zoning map is hereby amended as to replace A1, General Agricultural District, to the R1, Single Family Residential Zoning District for property located at 3424 Sunnyside Road in Durant, and more particularly described as this 7-line long meets and bounds legal description. I'll make a motion that we approve Section 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the item at 4G for Section 1.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. For Section 2, I'll read this as well. For the immediate preservation of peace, health, and safety of the city of Durant, Oklahoma, and the inhabitants thereof, it is necessary that this ordinance shall become operative and go into effect immediately upon its passage, approval, and publication. And I'll make a motion that we approve that section.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Section 2 of item 4G. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Next is item 4H, consideration and approval for a rezone request at 319 West Louisiana Street.
Yes, this one, they are wanting to do, some multifamily complexes. They have a really good, drawing of the sketch that they're looking to do there. They are needing it to go from R2 to R3 in order to do the multifamily. It abuts R3 directly to the north. East, west, and south will all be 2-family residential or R2. And they will just need it to conform to the R3 in order to proceed with the project.
So you can see the R3 right straight across the street, and it is R2. Go down to the photo if you would, please. Gives a better idea. There's a park just adjacent on the west boundary line of this property under consideration as well. So the park's also in an R2 zone area. So this is a low density or medium density. Any other details about the property that are salient to the conversation tonight?
It was recommended that we, not break that straight equal line barrier. I do understand that concern, but also if you go down to 5th, R3 begins there, well past that straight line barrier and continues on west. Just to take into consideration there.
There's a park in between.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, there was a
Just-
split vote from planning and zoning. I gather it carried a no in the end. That wasn't in my information I got to read, but it was a split vote. So there were good sound
Against?
reasoning for the yeses and the nos.
And against, they,
It didn't say.
It was recommended a denial.
Okay, all I got was it said there's a split vote. So that was the end of my understanding. Any more comments or questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Not hearing a motion, this item will die for lack of a motion tonight. We'll move on to item 4I, consideration and approval for a rezone request at West Alabama and South 2nd Avenue.
This is going with the same developer, same idea, design, same concept there. Need to go to R3 in order to build the multifamily complexes. It is currently there is no R3 zoning within the block radius around that area. It's R2 to the north and west, C2 to the south, and railroad to the east.
Can this one did not pass planning and zoning. This one was denied at planning and zoning. So do we need to take this up for a further discussion, questions tonight? Comments? So do I hear a motion for item 4I? Hearing none, that item will die for lack of a motion. We'll move on to 4J, consideration and approval for a rezone request at West Mississippi Street and South 2nd Avenue, just down the road.
Once again, same developer, same design. This one's a little different. They're only needing to go to R3 because the concept of what they're wanting to do in this does fit the R2 zoning, but the lot itself doesn't meet the R2 size requirement. I believe it's 70 foot instead of 80 foot. It was denied. I would like to maybe seek some type of different route to, if possible, for a variance. But it was denied as far as rezoning to R3.
So for the city council, at least tonight, my suggestion is that if the planning and zoning wants to recommend a variance and bring to the city council, that we would consider that. But do I hear a motion for this as it's presented tonight? For item 4I. I'm sorry, 4J. I'm trying to keep up. Not doing a very good job of it, am I? Hearing no motion, that will die for lack of action. Now, we're on to 4K, if I can keep up. Consideration and approval for a rezone request at 820 East Main.
This is currently zoned commercial 3 or C3. He was originally looking to rezone to R3 to convert the church into a single-family residential home. According to the future land use map, it is leaning more toward single-family residential. And in order to kind of get that going in that direction, I agree with Planning Commission that an R1 would benefit better than an R3. And the owner of the property is in agreement with that as well.
Very good. Any comments or questions on item 4K here on East Main Street? Hearing no questions, I'll make the motion that the zoning map hereby be amended as to replace the C3 General Commercial District to the R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District for the property located at 820 East Main and Durant, more particularly described in this legal description of the south 183 feet of Lot 1, Block 2 in the Highland Park Edition of the City of Durant, Bryan County, Oklahoma. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for item 4K. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Next, on the same item, Section 2, for the immediate preservation of the peace, health, and safety of the City of Durant, Oklahoma, and the inhabitants thereof, it is necessary that this ordinance become operative and go into effect immediately upon its passage, approval, and publication. And that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Section 2 of item 4K. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes, that is all of the business tonight under ordinary business. Are there any items of new business, which is the last thing on the City Council agenda tonight? Any new business to come before the City Council tonight? East Main? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn the City Council meeting for the City of Durant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes, and councilman, don't get up. At this time, I'll call to order a meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller is absent. Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Here.
Chairman Tucker.
Here. First order of business under the consent items are two, the approval of regular minutes from the July 9th meeting, and to consider a declaration of certain landfill equipment as surplus as approved by the Durant City Council. That would be us, which happens to be 1 truck, 1 pickup, and 7 trailers. Are there any items to be removed from a consent agenda for further discussion or consideration? Hearing none, I move for approval of the consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent items under item 1.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item 2 is those items removed, and there were none. We'll move on to item 3, information items. There are none on the agenda. In item 4, we have discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the purchase of 10 new roll-off containers for the amount of $59,950 from Texoma Manufacturing, LLC. Mr. Hightower.
Yes, sir. We went out for quotes with 3 different companies. Texoma had the cheapest quote. We get 10 new roll-off containers. Hometown business building them. Just asking your approval of purchase.
The quotes were in your packet if you had a chance to review those as well. And this was the low quote as well. So not only the best, but the cheapest. Comments or questions on this item for the roll-off containers? I move to approve then item 4A for the purchase of 10 new roll-off containers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 4A. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu.
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is item 5, new business. Is there any new business to come before the Utilities Authority tonight? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn this evening's session of the Durant City Utilities Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Next, my favorite thing, I call to order a meeting of the Durant Airport Authority. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller is absent. Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Here.
Chairman Tucker.
Here, and just like last month, item 1, consent agenda items are to approve the minutes of last month's Airport Authority meeting where we met to approve the minutes of the meeting that we had before that. Are there any questions on those minutes? I move for approval of the consent agenda items. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, there are no other items on the agenda tonight. Is there any new business to come before the Airport Authority at this time? Hearing none, I move for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the Durant Airport Authority meeting. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, thank you very much. We stand adjourned. Appreciate you all being here.